Moon Knight is a highly anticipated Marvel series on Disney Plus that makes some fresh choices that set it apart from many MCU movies. Stick around and I will share my thoughts. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Moon Knight, the premiere on Disney Plus. The synopsis for the series as a whole on IMDb reads, a former U.S. Marine struggling with dissociative identity disorder is granted the powers of an Egyptian moon god, but he soon finds out that these newfound powers can be both a blessing and a curse to his troubled life. Okay, first off, none of that was a part of the pilot. So I guess that's where the series is going. I apologize if that was a spoiler to you, but I mean, when they put the synopsis out like that, I don't consider that to be a spoiler if it's the basic premise of the show. But episode 1, the synopsis even for episode 1 is like, this did not happen in episode 1. Episode 1, the synopsis reads, Stephen Grant learns that he may be a superhero, but may also share a body with a ruthless mercenary. I think both of these synopses, I don't know if they were put on, a lot of times IMDb will use official synopses that are part of the marketing for movies and shows and stuff, and that's what this seems like to me. Because if I was just going off of the premiere episode, I would be unsure until like the very end that this was even going to go in the direction of a superhero show. If I didn't know from the outset this is an MCU thing and, and all that kind of stuff. So let me talk about what this pilot is, what this first episode is, to properly set your expectations so that maybe you'll be able to get out of it, the strengths that it has instead of waiting for when it's going to become what the series is supposedly going to be. I would describe this pilot as being a psychological suspense supernatural dramedy. And I know that's a lot of things kind of combined together. I would say that the bulk of it, the core of this first episode, feels like an indie drama, dramedy, I should say. Because it's a slice of life story about this quirky, socially awkward British museum employee who regularly is losing time. In other words, he's just forgetting large chunks of time. Suddenly, his life will seem to go from one moment to a totally different situation and place, not knowing how he arrives in these strange places and situations. And largely, this plays out in the first episode as having the ramifications of problems in his social life. People that are frustrated with him because of these strange elements of his behavior. But also deals, I think, pretty equally with life-threatening situations as well, as he seems to be caught up in some kind of conflict with a militant cult. It, as I said, feels like an indie dramedy peppered with pretty liberally with some action and supernatural elements. But don't expect superhero stuff in the pilot. There are almost no superhero elements at all. And I wouldn't mind this because normally, I could just enjoy this kind of story. It's 47 minutes long, and for what it is, if I didn't factor in any expectations about it being an MCU character and wanting to know, if this is an MCU show, I want to see some superhero-y type stuff. And so, I was disappointed on that level, but just if I would have known going in what this is going to be, then I would be able to appreciate it more for what it was. And in fact, I was able really to appreciate it, despite, wanting it to kind of get to the superhero stuff, maybe at the halfway point. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that, it's billing itself as an MCU show, and it only puts one episode out on the premiere day. I think it would have been better for them to put 2 episodes out, because by the end of this first episode, you're like, okay, so now we're about to get into superhero stuff and roll credits, And so I think it would have been stronger for me in getting its hooks in me if I could have seen that second episode, which I would assume is going to get more into the superhero-y stuff. I'm interested in this story presented so far, but this pilot does not tell me what the series will be like, and that's really what I want from a pilot. There's only one element of the status quo that's presented here, one side of his personality. Stephen seems to have a multiple personality disorder, and the episode focuses almost entirely on his perspective, on this one personality and the experience that this personality is having. We just skip anything that might be going on with one or more other personalities that he may have. And I had hoped that halfway through they would kind of like do something clever, like rewind time and then show us the same stretch stretch of days, but what another of his personalities experienced during that same stretch of days. I thought that would have been a really cool and clever thing. Maybe that is what they're going to do. Maybe episode 2 will cover the same stretch of days from another personality. I don't know. But I would have liked that in my first dose that's presenting to me what this series is. And instead, they just showed me this single slice of it. Again, I didn't need it all to happen in the first episode. 47 minutes, that's not a long time. And so I can understand them not wanting to cram all that into one episode. But that's why I think they should have dropped 2 episodes on the premiere day so I could get a proper sense of, or a better sense anyway, of what this show, what this series is. As far as the cast and the performances, I'm really just going to focus on Oscar Isaac. He's not the only big name actor. Let's see, who is the other one? There's another big star in here, and I'm always terrible at remembering names. Dude from movies. Don't pop up ads now. Ethan Hawke, dang it. Yeah, sorry guys. If you've been listening for me for a while, you know I'm terrible at remembering actors' names just on the spur of the moment. Ethan Hawke, should have put that in my notes. He does fine. We don't see a ton of him. He's the cult leader. And I think his character is going to be very interesting. There's just an opening scene that says something very interesting about his character that I won't spoil because I think it's a good opening moment. But I want to see a lot more of him. Hopefully we'll get more of him in future episodes. Oscar Isaac carries the whole thing really well. It's written to be carried by whoever the actor is playing the protagonist. It's clearly meant to be a vehicle for him as an actor, and it's an appropriate choice. He creates a very endearing character for me in Steven, who is vulnerable and funny, but like the more rare, yet I think best type of MCU humor, the jokes are a natural outgrowth of Steven's personality, rather than the one-size-fits-all wisecracks that most MCU characters spout off and that usually bore me. Here, the humor is based on Steven's insecurity, on his awkwardness, and so even though I really didn't chuckle much, the jokes still served to flesh out his character for me and endear me to him. And most of that was in Isaac's delivery rather than the script itself and the dialogue itself, I think. So I will definitely enjoy seeing more of Isaacs as Steven and can only hope that his performance of the other personality or personalities he portrays will be as engaging for me. We'll see. As far as stunts and visuals, I really wanted the visual effects to be of the premium level that, say like some HBO Max shows have been, and it's not at the lowest level I've seen on premium streaming services, but I really wanted it to be more than fine, and I really felt like the visual effects were fine. There are numerous green screen shots that stood out to me as suspicious and CG creatures that look like CG creatures. Now granted, as many of you know, my eye is cursed to pick out CG even when I don't want to, even when I'm not trying to be hoity-toity or whatever and criticizing it on that level. I don't really go into stuff like that. It just stands out to me for whatever reason, and with the caliber of actors involved in this show, I would have hoped that the production values in other areas like the visual effects would also rise to a higher standard, but that wasn't my experience. There's not a ton of stunt and action work in the pilot because when that presumably happens in the story, we are jumping forward instantly to the next moment that Steven's personality is back in control, and he is not the action hero of the combo of personalities that are residing in his head. So let's see, as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? It's really too early to say. I think there are definitely some pieces in position that could be leveraged to explore some interesting themes, but I have no idea if they're going to. There's an ancient god worshipped by a cult who delivers death sentence judgments even for evils that people will supposedly commit because this god can see into the future or whatever. And so that could be contrasted with God's judgment only for what people have done. But this is only touched on. Multiple personalities, that premise may present opportunities to explore like maybe some questions about what makes us human, or perhaps the question of guilt for things we don't remember doing. I could see that maybe tying in with the judgment of this god in this cult. Maybe they'd do something there. There's a number of pieces, as I said, that are in play that are definitely going to have me leaning forward and watching for themes, but nothing really strong or obvious that I could see being presented yet. Now, I have no idea what your tastes are in in shows and movies, but if I were a time traveler and maybe like a parallel dimension hopper, I'd go back in time and say, Spader. Just wait until this whole series is out. I hate services that drip feed, their shows in the old school broadcast way just to keep me subscribed for a longer period of time. If you weren't reviewing premieres, that's entirely how you would have watched Moon Knight sitting down to it for the first time. So in a parallel universe, don't pull the trigger until all the eps are out, but you're kind of stuck in this universe where you're reviewing premieres. It has the strong character-driven focus that you highly value in fiction and a vulnerable, likable protagonist, as well as pretty dark and serious circumstances, despite the injection of humor. So these are all things that you really dig. It's got a lot of pieces in play in the story and in the acting that could make for a series that plays to your interests and your preferences quite a bit. But wait and give it a try on your terms, not on Disney's terms. Meanwhile, since this, you're stuck in this reality and you do have Disney Plus for a month, put Moon Knight on the back burner. Give Daredevil the try that you've always wanted to give it. This one's rated TV-14 for language and violence. And those are all my thoughts for now on Moon Knight, the series premiere on Disney Plus. I would love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that bell to stay connected. Summer Insanity is coming, where you can make me completely insane. You can find more info in the details below. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. More info about that over at patreon.com/SpiritBlade Productions. And as always, I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Summer Insanity.
Liberate butter.